Sure. Here is Part 1 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in third person, using simple and basic English. It's around 800 words long and focuses on building mystery and suspense without being overly complex. The stars stretched out like dust across black glass, far beyond the known borders of any major civilization. A small survey ship drifted silently through space. Its name was the Ariel, a deep-range vessel operated by the Anderix Coalition, a group of alien species that mapped the galaxy for trade, research, and diplomacy. Inside the Ariel, Lena Ruiz sat at her station, scanning data from the latest probe launch. She was one of the few humans who worked with the Coalition, though not officially. Most of her time was spent as an independent contractor, hired for her skills with navigation and data analysis. "Probe 3 is transmitting," said a voice behind her. It was Corin, the ship's engineer. He had dark skin, 4 eyes, and a voice like gravel. "Nothing unusual so far." "Good," Lena replied. "Let me know if anything looks off." She turned back to her screen. The probe was flying near the outer edge of mapped space where the galactic charts ended. Beyond that point, no official maps existed. There were rumors, of course, stories about something strange happening just past the human-controlled systems, but no one ever talked about it directly. Lena tapped a command into her console, pulling up a star map. The lines and labels stopped suddenly like someone had drawn them, and then changed their mind. Beyond that line, nothing. Just empty space and silence. She frowned. Every time she tried to pull more data, the system returned errors. Sometimes it showed random numbers. Other times it crashed completely. "This is weird," she muttered. "What is?" Corin asked. "Look at this," she said, turning the screen toward him. "Every time I try to get more info past the border, the system breaks." Corin leaned in, his eyes flickering between colors. After a moment, he shook his head. "Don't dig too deep," he said quietly. "No one likes it when you ask questions about human space." "Why not?" Lena asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked toward the observation window where the darkness of space seemed almost alive. "Because they don't want to be understood," he finally said. "And because we don't understand ourselves." Lena stared at him, confused. "You're saying even you don't know what's out there?" "I'm saying no one does," Corin replied. "Not really. And those who tried to find out, well, they never came back." Lena felt a chill run down her spine. She wanted to laugh it off, say it was just superstition, but Corin wasn't the type to joke, and he wasn't scared easily. She turned back to her console and pulled up the last recorded logs from previous missions. Sure enough, every time a probe or ship got too close to the human border, something went wrong. Some reports mentioned sudden equipment failure. Others described strange voices coming through comms. One pilot claimed he saw a city floating in space, a city that vanished when he blinked. None of it made sense. "Maybe it's interference," she said aloud, mostly to herself. "Something natural. Radiation, maybe? Magnetic fields?" "Possible," Corin said, "but unlikely. We've tested all that before. Nothing explains it." Lena thought for a moment. Then she opened a new file, one that wasn't part of the standard database. It was something she'd found while working on an old Earth archive. The file was labeled Origin and contained fragments of human history that didn't match any known records. Most people ignored it. Some said it was corrupted. Others claimed it was fake, but Lena wasn't so sure. She ran a search, linking the file to the current coordinates. The results popped up instantly, a string of dates, names, and locations. All of them pointed to the same place, the edge of human space. Before she could react, the screen flashed red. An error message appeared. "Access denied. Unauthorized inquiry." Then the screen went black. For a moment, everything on the ship went quiet. Lights dimmed. Engines hummed lower. Even the air felt heavier. "That's new," Corin said, stepping back. "Did you see that?" Lena asked. "Yeah," he said, "and I don't like it." They stood in silence for a few seconds. Then the lights flickered back on. The console rebooted. Everything seemed normal again. But Lena knew better. Something had noticed. She glanced at the observation window again. The stars looked the same, but now she couldn't shake the feeling that something else was watching. Something just beyond the edge of the map. Something human. After a long pause, she closed the file and deleted the search history. Better safe than sorry. Next time, she said quietly. We don't go this far. Corin nodded, but he didn't look relieved. Neither of them did. End of part 1. Let me know if you'd like this formatted into a downloadable document, like docs or .pdf, or if you want to continue with part 2. Sure, here is part 2 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, continuing from part 1. It's written in third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted without headings. The scene shifted across time and space. Where the aerial had drifted silently at the edge of known maps, this place was loud, full of voices, lights, and movement. It was a diplomatic summit held inside the Great Hall of Virelian Prime, one of the oldest and most respected planets in the Coalition. Rows of alien delegates filled the chamber, each representing their own species, cultures, and histories stretching back thousands of years. Some were tall and thin with skin like polished stone. Others had 4 arms or no mouths at all, communicating through color changes on their skin. At the far end of the room stood a small group of humans. They didn't look like warriors or scholars. They looked ordinary, dressed in simple suits, smiling politely and saying very little. Among them was a man named Greg Holloway. He wasn't a soldier or a scientist. He was a diplomat, though. No one could quite agree what that meant when it came to humans. They didn't follow the usual rules of diplomacy. Auxiliary ambassador stepped forward, his voice echoing through the chamber. The auxiliary were known for their knowledge and generosity, often sharing technology and wisdom with younger civilizations. We offer our support, he said. We share our history, our science, our culture. We ask only for understanding in return. He turned toward the human delegation. Will you do the same? For a moment there was silence. Then Greg Holloway stepped forward. He was not the tallest man in the room, nor the loudest. But when he spoke, everyone listened. Thank you, he said, his voice calm. Your offer is generous, and we appreciate it. He paused, letting the words settle. But we are still learning who we are, he continued. Our past. It's not something we fully understand yet. Some of the delegates exchanged glances. That answer was unexpected. You mean to say, said a Corin representative, that you will not be sharing your history with us? Holloway smiled gently. Not today, he said. Maybe someday, but not now. Another silence followed, this one heavier than the last. After the meeting ended, the aliens gathered in smaller groups, whispering among themselves. They don't trust us, said one. No, replied another. It's more like they don't want to be understood. Over the next few weeks, reports spread among the Coalition worlds. Humans had declined every request for cultural exchange. They accepted trade agreements but offered nothing in return, except vague promises. Some began to call them ghosts, beings that existed but left no trace behind. Others called them gods, because they gave no answers and demanded no worship. Most just avoided them. One by one, the embassies on Earth grew quieter. Fewer visitors arrived. Fewer messages were sent. Humans remained polite. They never refused anything outright. They just never said yes either. On the planet Lyrax 9, a young researcher named Naya studied human behavior for her thesis. She read everything she could find. Old transmissions, recorded conversations, even personal letters traded between human workers and alien traders. What she found disturbed her. There were no patterns, no clear origins, no myths or legends passed down like other species had. The humans seemed to appear out of nowhere, as if they had always been there. And worse, every attempt to dig deeper into their past led to missing files, corrupted data, or people who suddenly stopped talking. Naya tried asking a human contact about it once. Where did your people come from? she asked during a casual conversation. The man, an engineer named Dan, looked at her for a long time before answering. I don't know, he said finally. Sometimes I think we're still trying to figure that out ourselves. His tone was light, almost joking, but his eyes told a different story. Later that night, Naya tried to write down what she'd learned, but as she typed, her screen flickered. Strange symbols appeared, then vanished. Her file was gone. She never tried again. Back on Varelian Prime, the auxiliary ambassador sat alone in his office staring at a star map. A single line marked the boundary of human space, the same invisible border that no one dared cross. He reached out and touched the screen, tracing the edge with his clawed finger. What are you? He whispered to himself, outside the stars, burned cold and silent. Somewhere beyond the line, the humans waited and watched. End of part 2. Would you like me to format this into a downloadable document? Docs or PDF? Or would you like to continue with part 3? Of course, here is a part 4 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, continuing from the previous parts. It's written in third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted without headings, on a small station orbiting Proxima Centauri. 4 teenagers sat in a storage room filled with old tech and forgotten supplies. The room was quiet except for the hum of the station's lights and the occasional hiss of an air vent. The kids had grown up together, raised on a colony that never quite felt like home. They were used to long days, short rations, and rules that made no sense. So when they found a way into the old military archive, they didn't think twice about it. You sure this'll work? Asked Jason, the tallest of the group. He was good with machines, but not great with nerves. Yeah, said Maya, tapping at a cracked screen. It should open any second. Maya was the smartest among them. She could hack into almost anything. Security feeds, maintenance logs, even the cafeteria menu if she wanted. Today, though, she was trying something bigger. Behind her stood Luis and Tina. Luis was always laughing even when things went wrong. Tina was quiet, but sharp. She remembered everything. The screen flickered, then blinked, then showed a list of files labeled with strange names. Origin, First Light, Echo Event. What's that mean? Luis asked. No idea, Maya said. But let's find out. She clicked one at random. The file opened slowly, like it didn't want to be seen. The image was grainy, black and white, and shaking. It looked like old footage from a camera floating in space. At first, there was nothing but stars. Then, something moved. A shape passed by. Massive, silent, and fast. The camera tried to follow, but whatever it was vanished before it could focus. What the hell was that? Jason whispered. Wait, Maya said. There's more. The video jumped forward. Now it showed a different view, this time from near Mars. The red planet filled the screen. Then came ships. Lots of them. But these weren't human ships. They were unlike anything the kids had ever seen. Sleek, dark, and shaped like nothing in the known fleet, and they were surrounding something, a city, floating in space. It wasn't attached to anything. No orbit, no support systems. Just hanging there, surrounded by those strange ships. That can't be real, Tina said. It has to be fake, Luis added. Right? Before anyone could answer, the screen flashed red. Error. Unauthorized access detected. The file closed itself. Then the entire system shut down. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Maya leaned back in her chair, breathing hard. Okay, she said. We're never doing that again. They all nodded, but deep down they knew it was already too late. Later that night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept seeing the same image in her mind. The floating city, the ships watching it, the silence between them. When she finally fell asleep, she dreamed. In the dream, she stood on a moon. It was gray, cold, and lifeless. Above her, the stars burned brighter than they ever did at home. A man stood nearby. He wore a simple coat and looked up at the sky. He didn't speak, just watched. Mayan woke up sweating. Over the next few nights, the dream returned. Each time, the man was closer. Each time, the stars burned a little hotter. One night, he turned toward her, just stared, and smiled. She woke up screaming. The others started having dreams too. Different ones, but all leading to the same place. The moon, the man, the burning stars. None of them talked about it, not at first. But soon, even Louise stopped joking. Something in their heads had changed. They hadn't just seen something. They had been seen, back on Earth. In a quiet office buried beneath layers of bureaucracy, a man in a plain suit read a report. 4 miners accessed restricted data, it said. Footage from Echo event recovered. Dream activity reported. The man closed the file and placed it inside a locked drawer. He picked up a phone and dialed a number. "Clean it up," he said simply. Then he hung up. Outside, the stars burned cold and silent. And somewhere beyond the edge of the map, the humans watched, always watching. End of Part 4. Would you like me to format this into a downloadable document, docs or .pdf, or continue with Part 5? Absolutely. Here's Part 5 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in a third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted without headings. Derek Voss wasn't what anyone would call important. He worked maintenance on a mining colony orbiting Titan, the icy moon of Saturn. His job was simple: fix broken machines, clean up messes, and keep things running. No one asked him questions, no one gave him secrets, but sometimes secrets found him anyway. It started with a leak in the lower levels of the colony's living quarters. Derek was sent to check it. The pipes were old, buried behind walls that hadn't been touched in years. As he cut through one panel to reach the faulty line, something strange happened. The wall opened more than it should have. Not just a small hole, a whole section gave way, revealing a narrow passage behind it. Dark, quiet, untouched. Derek frowned. He looked around. No one else was nearby. He grabbed his light and stepped inside. The air was cold. The floor was metal, worn smooth by time. The walls were lined with wires and old panels, some blinking faintly like they still remembered how to work. At the end of the passage was a door, not locked, not sealed, just waiting. He pushed it open. Inside was a small room. At its center stood a console, round, black, and covered in symbols he didn't recognize. Screens lined the walls, showing images from across space. One showed a council chamber filled with aliens arguing. Another showed a war room where maps were being drawn for battle plans. Another showed a child sleeping in a bed far away. They were all watching Earth. Not just watching, studying, waiting. Derek stared at the screens, heart pounding. How long had this place been here? Who built it? And why had no one noticed? He reached out and touched the console. The screen flickered. A new image appeared. His own face looking back at him. He pulled his hand away fast. The screen blinked again, then changed. Now it showed a list of names. Some he recognized, others he didn't. Dates, locations, all connected to people who had asked too many questions about human space. People who had disappeared or stopped asking. Derek backed away slowly. He turned to leave, but the door slid shut behind him. He tried to open it. Nothing happened. Then came a voice. Soft. Calm. Not loud, but clear. You weren't supposed to see this. Derek spun around. No one was there. The lights dimmed. The screens went dark. Then one lit up again. Just one word. Remember. Before he could react, the door opened. He ran, back through the passage, down the hallway, out into the colony. No one saw him come out. No one asked where he'd gone. He didn't tell anyone. Not then, not ever. But after that day, something changed. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the screens. the faces, the names. He dreamed of places he'd never been, heard voices speaking languages he didn't know. Once he woke up and found himself standing in front of the mirror, writing numbers on the glass, coordinates. He wiped them off before he could look too closely. Weeks passed, then 2 men arrived. They didn't wear uniforms, didn't carry badges, just plain clothes, soft voices, and eyes that missed nothing. They knocked on his door. He opened it. They didn't ask to come in, just looked at him, then one said, "You saw it, didn't you?" Derek didn't answer. The other man nodded like he already knew. "Don't talk about it," he said. "Don't write it down, don't even think about it too much." Then they left, like they had never been there. Derek watched them go. After that, he did exactly what they said. He didn't speak of the room, didn't try to find it again. But sometimes, late at night when the lights were low and the world was quiet, he would stare out the window at the stars and then wonder, what was he supposed to remember? And why did someone want him to forget? Outside, the stars burned cold and silent, and somewhere beyond the edge of the map, the humans watched. Always watching. End of Part 5. Would you like me to format this into a downloadable document, .docs or PDF, or continue with Part 6? Absolutely. Here's a my cue, Part 6. Of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in re-year, third person, using round, simple, and basic English, or your around 800 words, and formatted without headings. Many years ago, the Corinth Dominion had ruled over 6 star systems. They were known for their strength, their discipline, and their war machines. No one crossed them, no one challenged them, until they looked toward human space. The records were buried now, hidden behind layers of time and silence. But once, long ago, the Dominion had planned an invasion. Not out of greed or hate, but fear. They didn't understand. Humans. No one did. So they decided to take what answers they could by force. The fleet was ready. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, weapons that could turn planets to dust. The order came from the high command, prepare for strike. But then, just as suddenly, it was taken back, cancel all movement, stand down, return to base. No reason was given, no explanation followed, only silence. The commander who gave the final order was General Raleigh Vorn, a warrior who had never backed down from a fight. He had led campaigns across 3 galaxies, had crushed rebellions before they began, and yet, on the eve of war with humanity, he walked into his private chamber and never came out. His body was found hours later. He had ended his own life. On his desk was a single note. It read, "We don't know what they are." No one spoke of the failed invasion after that, not openly. Some said the humans had sent a message. Others believed the Dominion had discovered something in their intelligence files, something so terrifying it made war unthinkable. A few, even, whispered that the general hadn't killed himself at all, that something else had made sure he never spoke again. Decades passed. Then centuries. The Dominion grew older, slower. They became traders instead of warriors, diplomats instead of conquerors. But still, they remembered. In the grand halls of Corinth Prime, where history was carved into stone walls and spoken in quiet voices, the old stories remained. One such story was told by the current emperor, a man named Talon Korin. He was not a war leader like those before him. He had never seen battle, but he knew the past better than most. During a gathering of young scholars, he was asked about the great wars, the ones fought across stars, the ones that shaped the galaxy. One student raised his hand. "Your Grace," he said, "why did the Dominion never try to invade human space again?" Talon looked at him for a long time, then he smiled, not with joy but with memory. "Because we remember," he said quietly. The student frowned. "Remember what?" "What it felt like," Talon replied. "To look at them and be seen back." The room went silent. They weren't afraid of us, the Emperor continued. They didn't even notice us at first, and when they did, something changed. He looked out the window, where the stars burned cold and distant. They don't act like other species, he said. They don't follow rules. They don't leave trails. They just are. He turned back to the students. And we realized, he said, that if we tried to take what wasn't ours, they might finally decide to ask who we were. The students didn't speak. None of them had thought of it that way, not as a threat, but as something worse, something unknown. Back on the Emperor's private ship, a sealed file sat in a locked drawer. It had been there for generations. No one had opened it in centuries. Inside were reports from the time of the canceled invasion, footage from deep space sensors, voice logs from officers who had gone mad in the days before the strike was called off, and one final message recorded just before the order was given. It was only a few seconds long, just static, then a voice. Not loud, not angry, just calm and clear. You're not ready. Then silence. The Emperor never listened to the message. He didn't need to. He already knew what it meant. Outside, the stars burned cold and silent, and somewhere beyond the edge of the map, the humans watched, always watching. End of part 6. Would you like me to format this into a downloadable document, docx or .pdf, or continue with part 7? Absolutely. Here's part 7 of your HFY Sci-Fi story, written in third person, using simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted without headings. Lena Ruiz stood on the observation deck of the Astrid, a small, research ship sent to study the edge of human space. She had spent years chasing rumors, lost files, and unanswered questions. Now, she was finally close enough to touch the border. The others on board were quiet. They knew what this mission meant, not just for science, but for survival. No one came back the same from this place. Some didn't come back at all. They had been warned. The coalition had tried to stop them. Even her own people had looked at her like she was making a mistake. But Lena had made her choice. She wanted answers. The Astrid drifted closer to the invisible line. Outside the window, the stars looked normal, peaceful. Nothing seemed different, until it wasn't. First, the lights flickered. Then the instruments began to fail. The navigation system showed impossible readings. Places that didn't exist. Times that didn't match. Something's wrong, said Marco, the pilot. His voice was tight with fear. Keep us steady, Lena said. We're still recording. We're not getting any data, he replied. It's like space is broken out here. Then the comms went dead. Not static, not silence. Just gone. Like they had never existed. One by one, the crew reported strange things. Voices in their headphones, shadows in the corners of rooms, memories that didn't belong to them. Jen, the biologist, started talking about a sister she never had. Danny, the engineer, kept drawing the same symbol over and over on his tablet, a spiral with no end. Lisa, the medic, vanished from her bunk. In the middle of the night, just gone. No signs, no footprints, no body. They searched every part of the ship. Nothing. After that, no one slept alone. But it didn't help. Dreams came anyway. Everyone had the same one. A moon, dark and cold. A man standing alone watching the stars burn. And a voice, soft and calm, saying, "You don't belong here." Lena tried to stay focused. She recorded everything she could. She wrote down what she saw, what she felt, what changed. But when she looked back at her notes, the words were different. Not wrong, just not hers. As if someone else had written them. On the 5th day, she recorded a final message. Her voice was tired. Her eyes were red. "They're not hiding," she said. "They're waiting." She paused. Maybe for us to understand, or maybe for us to leave. That was the last anyone heard from the Astrid. Search teams were sent. Signals were scanned. Nothing was found. No wreckage, no bodies, no ship. Only one thing returned. A recovery vessel picked up something strange floating in space where the asteroid had last been seen. Every screen on board lit up. Just one word blinked across them all. Stop. Back on Earth, in a quiet room with no windows, a man read the report. He didn't look surprised. He placed the file into a drawer marked closed. Then he picked up a phone. Let the others know, he said. Someone got too close again. He hung up. Outside, the stars burned cold and silent, and somewhere beyond the edge of the map, the humans watched, always watching. End of Part 7. Would you like me to format this into a downloadable document, docs or .pdf, or continue with Part 8? Of course, here's my Part 8. The final part of your HFY Sci-Fi story. It's written in your third person, using your simple and basic English, around 800 words, and formatted without headings. In a quiet room buried beneath the surface of the moon, Elliot Marsh sat alone at a dusty desk. He was an archivist, one of the few who still cared about old records, forgotten files, and things that no one else wanted to find. He had spent years cataloging data from early human space, missions, while most of it boring, some of it useless. But sometimes, hidden between broken files and corrupted logs, there were pieces of something bigger, something no one was supposed to see. Today, he had found one of those pieces. A drive labeled Origin Do Not Open sat on his desk. It had been locked away for decades, ignored by everyone who knew it existed. No one had ever tried to open it. Until now, Elliot stared at it for a long time before plugging it in. The screen flickered. Then came a message. You don't have to do this. He blinked, then typed, Who are you? No reply. He pressed enter. The file opened. What he saw wasn't history. It was a warning. Images flashed across the screen, stars burning out, ships vanishing into nothing, cities floating in silence. Voices spoke in languages he didn't know, yet somehow understood. They said the same thing over and over. We were never alone. More images followed. Maps, dates, names, all pointing to one place, Earth, but not as it was, as it had been, before anyone remembered, before anything made sense. The final message appeared. Humanity did not begin here, but we are here now, and we are not what you think. Elliot leaned back, heart pounding. This wasn't just history. This was something else. He closed the file slowly, then did something he hadn't planned. He sent a message, not to his superiors, not to the coalition, to every major alien embassy. Just a short note. We are not what you think, but we are not your enemies. Not yet. He didn't expect a reply. He didn't get one. But the next day, something changed. Maps began updating themselves. Slowly, carefully. New lines appeared beyond the edge of human space. Not full charts, not complete routes, but hints, like someone or something one was watching, and finally beginning to trust. On Virelian Prime, a Zalari diplomat named Naya stared at the new map on her screen. For the first time in centuries, the border wasn't a wall, it was a door. She turned to her colleague. Do you think they're ready? She asked. He looked at her for a long moment. Maybe, he said. Or maybe they're just giving us permission to look. Far away, on a quiet station orbiting Titan, Derek Voss looked up at the stars. He didn't dream anymore. Not like before. But sometimes when the lights were low and the world was quiet, he could almost hear them. Watching, waiting on Proxima Centauri, Maya stood outside, staring into the sky. Her friends had stopped talking about the dreams, but she hadn't forgotten. None of them had back on Earth. The man in the plain suit read Elliot's message again, then smiled, just a little. He picked up the phone. Tell them, he said. It's starting. Then he hung up. Outside, the stars burned cold and silent, and somewhere beyond the edge of the map, the humans watched, always watching. But now, they were letting others watch too. End of Part 8. And end of story. Would you like me to format all 8 parts into a downloadable document, docx or PDF? Let me know how you'd like to receive it.